Regardless of if it was your favorite installment in the series or how you feel about it, there's no denying that Persona 5 was a big hit and really made Persona a household name. And since it's almost been 7 years since the original game came out, a lot of people are wondering when is Persona 6 going to come out. Especially given that since Persona 5 came out, we've had the Persona 3 and 5 dancing games, Persona Q2, Persona 5 Royal, and most recently Persona 5 Strikers released, with no clear sign of P6 in sight. I honestly think we may not see anything about it until maybe next year or near the end of this year at the soonest. Personally, I'm not in too much of a rush for it to come out because I've gone back to some of the earlier games in the Persona series like Persona 3 Portable, which I'm actually playing right now. Or just the fact that there's so many other games in general out there to play. But hopefully, the development team at Atlus doesn't feel pressured and rushes to meet expectations and ends up failing to deliver, which I don't think will happen, but still. There are still some other things to consider too, I think. One reason may be the fact that Atlus is hard at work, trying to make a worthy successor to P5, given the high expectations that the fans have. Or it could be Atlus dividing the labor between teams working on other projects that may or may not relate to SMT, but may also involve the rumored Persona 3 remake. Yeah, it's been a while since Persona 5 came out, but there's also been several spin-off games, including the Dynasty Warriors-inspired Persona 5 Strikers featuring the main Phantom Thieves cast. But anyway, Persona 6's release might not be too different from Persona 5, though that's not necessarily a bad thing given how great Persona 5 turned out. Remember when Persona 5 was teased to come out winter 2014 and ended up releasing in Japan nearly 2 years later? I mean, the gap between the original Persona 4 and the original Persona 5 was about 8 years, but it's not like the gap wasn't filled with anything meaningful. Personally, I'd rather just wait until Atlus is close to being done to tease it, rather than announce it and then it ends up getting delayed anyway. Especially since I feel like whenever developers give themselves these self-imposed deadlines that are really difficult to achieve, it never really works out. Another reason is the effect that the pandemic has had on game development, and it has probably affected the process more than people on the outside would think. While it's true that the pandemic has mostly ended, the effects are still being felt. Even the most recent Nintendo Direct still mentioned at the beginning how the pandemic affected the scheduled release dates of games. And it's probably why the Direct before this latest one was criticized for mostly having farming games. Since it affected Nintendo, there's no doubt that other video game companies were also affected as a result. I'm not saying that's a guarantee for every company, but it's definitely a possibility. This last one is probably the biggest reason, and it just might be me looking at a pattern that doesn't exist. But I think we may get one last Persona 5 spin-off game before Persona 6. Or at least one more Persona spin-off game that includes elements of Persona 5 Royal, such as the inclusion of Kasumi and or Maruki. The pattern being, Atlus seems to be trying to make everything fit into a larger canon or multiple canons that involve multiple universes, possibly. With Persona 5 Royal recently being released, many people might still hold on to the fact that the original is still the canon Persona 5, and Persona 5 Royal isn't. Considering some of the Persona 5 Royal elements aren't really mentioned in Persona 5 Strikers. Or that Royal retroactively replaces Persona 5, but in a way I think that's both correct and incorrect. Stay tuned, because I'll be making another part to this video that will go deeper into this. This probably won't age well, but I'm just trying to share my current predictions for what Atlus has planned with Persona 6, and whatever the future of the Persona series may look like. I look forward to reading the comments and seeing the possible speculation other Persona fans may have. I hope you enjoyed this video and look forward to seeing the next part where I elaborate further on this video. Until then, take care.